Hey everyone, welcome back. So I've kind of been avoiding a little bit delving deep into narcissism or narcissistic personality disorder. And the reason that is because I'm not a trained professional. And I feel that I need to be careful when speaking about different disorders on this channel because I don't want to give you guys misinformation from someone who simply understands mental health but not being trained in that field, if you catch my drift. I feel that I'm able to talk more about my own mental health because obviously I have direct experience and I know what goes on in my head. Because I'm personally not a narcissist and I'm not trained in psychology, it of course is a little bit more difficult, or I have to treat it with a bit more delicacy when I'm talking about these things. However, in saying that, so many of you guys have asked me to talk about narcissism and the relationship between those who may have narcissistic personality disorder and those who are empaths or otherwise INFPs. It is a hot topic because many of us, because we're so sensitive and empathetic and we're like emotional sponges, we wind up getting ourselves into relationships, and not meaning particularly romantic relationships, but it could be friendships or co-workers or school peers or whatever. We find that we're in these relationships and we have a great deal of difficulty to be able to navigate our way through those relationships and cut off toxic behaviors or toxic people which do negatively affect us. So due to popular demand, this is what I'm going to be chatting with you guys about today. I'm going to be brushing over the actual narcissistic personality disorder and then also narcissistic behaviors, because narcissism does lie on a spectrum and we may have people in our lives that may not be narcissists per se, because armchair diagnosis is always a little bit fiddly, but they may display behaviors which do reflect narcissism, so narcissistic behaviors which do negatively affect us. So I'll be chatting about that too. So narcissism tends to be quite a loose term that gets thrown around when we wind up in a relationship with people who display certain toxic behaviors that do reflect narcissism. It doesn't necessarily mean that person may actually have a narcissistic personality disorder, but the term is widely used because I guess many of us are affected by these toxic behaviors. And it's a good thing that we discuss these certain things, because when we do bring them to light and understand toxic people in our lives, it means that we do recognize those toxic behaviors. We do recognize that those toxic behaviors do affect us negatively, and then we can decide what to do with that. So when we are infants, we base our environment off the center of ourselves. So basically, the world revolves around us. We are the center of the universe. This is all part of our development in ourselves, where we begin to realize our ego. It's a very important part of our development into adulthood, into being functioning members of society. This development of self-centeredness usually ceases by the time we reach adulthood. However, some people do wind up developing narcissistic personality disorder, or they exhibit narcissistic behaviors. The causes are allegedly still quite unknown. However, professionals do theorize that narcissistic personality disorder is created by certain styles of parenting, i.e. when you give your child way too much praise, when you put them on a pedestal and treat them like a god. Well, maybe not a god, but you know what I mean. Like when you give them excessive adoration, where you overpraise them, where they believe they can't do any wrong, they can scream and shout and throw tantrums and no one's going to be disciplining them or teaching them certain ways in order to regulate themselves, and therefore they wind up becoming brats. So the goal of the narcissist is to exploit their relationships for personal gain. This could be having their victim stroke their ego or actually gain something from them, to get something from them without having any regard for what they may give in return or how it may make the other person in the relationship feel. The narcissist wants to feel liked, they want to feel valued, they want to feel adored and admired. They want to feel like the alpha of their situation. They want to be the best, they want to be better than everyone else, and they want everyone else to realize that this narcissist is better than them. They don't see anything wrong with their behavior. They don't feel very much remorse from hurting others in order to gain something, because at the end of the day, it's all about them. It's all about what they can get from others. It's all about feeding that ego. So some of the narcissistic personality disorder symptoms are as follows. They have an exaggerated sense of self-importance, have a sense of entitlement, and require constant, excessive admiration. They expect to be recognized as superior, even without achievements that warrant it. They exaggerate achievements and talents. They are preoccupied with fantasies about success, power, brilliance, beauty, or the perfect mate. They believe they are superior and can only associate with equally special people. They monopolize conversations and belittle or look down on people they perceive as inferior. They expect special favors and unquestioning compliance with their expectations. They take advantage of others to get what they want. They have an ability or unwillingness to recognize the needs and feelings of others. They are envious of others and believe others envy them. And when they don't get what they want, they may become impatient or angry when they don't receive special treatment. They may have significant interpersonal problems and feel easily slighted. They react with rage or contempt and try to belittle the other person to make themselves appear superior. They have difficulty regulating emotions and behavior. They experience major problems dealing with stress and adapt to change. They feel depressed and moody because they fall short of perfection, and they have secret feelings of insecurity, shame, vulnerability, and humiliation. So doesn't that just sound all too familiar? I'm sure that many of you have someone like this in your life, or at least on your timeline, and you can't help but to question, why is it that people like that target you? Like, why is it that you're the one who gives them everything? You're the one who is still nice to them after everything that they've done to you. Why is it that you can't just stand up to this person and tell them to F off, frankly? Narcissists do target sensitive people. They target empaths. They target people who are emotional sponges and who do understand the human condition, who want to be there for the people that they care about. They target people who want to make a difference in people's lives. Narcissists understand that the INFP is compassionate. They understand that the INFP is sensitive, and it's just so easy for them to get what they need out of you in order to make them feel better, to make them feel bigger, to make their feathers puff up, if you will. The other part of this is the fact that INFPs do find it hard to stand up for themselves. So when they're in a situation of conflict, that narcissist has pretty much everything over that INFP, because INFP is not going to stand there and fight back, verbally at least. They're going to internalize everything. They're going to go into their shell, they're going to retreat, and they're going to feel very hurt and silenced. Sometimes these narcissists can completely surprise us, because sometimes they can be people whom we've actually valued, whom have appeared to be compassionate themselves at some point of time. And it all comes down to the fact that narcissists aren't always grandiose. And one of those types are the vulnerable narcissists. These are the narcissists that act empathetic. They have a veil of empathy over them so that they can trick you into believing that they are these compassionate, lovely, empathetic, sensitive kinds of people, but really there's an ulterior motive underneath that. And because these people do appear to be compassionate, we're drawn to them because we like to surround ourselves with people who are empathetic and sensitive like us. And unfortunately, while we're in this relationship, they have a tendency to pick at us over time to the point where we believe everything is wrong with us. This is probably the sneakiest kind of narcissist because they mask themselves so well. So what's different about this kind of narcissist is that they likely didn't receive the kind of praise and adoration in childhood as their other narcissistic counterparts. There may have been a mix of that, but then also a mix of intense criticism. This narcissist could have been overly critiqued. They likely would have had a narcissistic parent who tried to get something from them, and in turn it had created a very vulnerable, insecure person who needs to feed off others in order to make them feel good. So what can you do about narcissists in your life, especially when those narcissists are abusing you or hurting you in any way, shape or form? It is really, really difficult, I know from experience, to be able to actually exit that kind of situation. I think the first step is recognizing that there is toxic behavior going on. And because we so freely and loosely use the narcissistic term, which I think is good and bad, I think at least we know that when we're in a relationship or we have people around us who display those narcissistic behaviors, that we can recognize that it is toxic. The next thing is to talk to someone whom you trust. Talk to them about what is going on in this relationship. Talk about these certain behaviors that are being exhibited, the manipulation, the gaslighting, the controlling behaviors, for example. And of course, with these certain behaviors, especially with manipulation, they make it out to be your problem. So you believe that you're the crazy one. You believe that you're the one who is doing the damage. It can almost act in a way that this trusted person can help you self-reflect on what is actually going on. The next thing to establish is a plan of attack. How are you going to deal with the situation? Are you going to walk away? Are you going to confront that narcissist? It really all depends on the actual situation, whether you're safe enough to do so. There have been certain times in my life in the workplace where I've had meetings to discuss these certain kinds of toxic behaviors that have gone on, but it all depends again on what the situation actually is. I've also found that having a trusted person there with me to actually be around these negative toxic behaviors, where they can help me stand up for myself, where they can intervene and actually say something too by calling out the narcissist and letting them know that their behavior is unacceptable. I found that that has helped a great deal with me as well. Another thing that you can do is help other vulnerable people as well. People whom are in your position where they're struggling with their own relationships. When you can help others, that empowers you. Where we can talk about toxic behaviors and our personal boundaries, it reinforces what we already believe. It reinforces our particular values and what we're not willing to stand for. I have had obviously my own experiences with narcissists, and especially being a sensitive person, I have been the one to get picked on. It's happened all my life, and unfortunately it has affected me so much that it has created trauma. This has happened a lot in the workplace, and it does happen a lot in the workplace. I bring this one up specifically because there is an epidemic, especially in New Zealand, in the trades cultures, where superiors or co-workers expect you to kind of act within a certain way, and they'll beat you down so much that you wind up suppressing yourself, you'll wind up suppressing your feelings, and your sensitivity and your vulnerability gets compromised. I, of course, have experienced that while I was working in a trade, and I've talked about this before on my channel. My manager, she was a narcissist, or is a narcissist, and she absolutely used me. It affected me so much that I found it very difficult in order to retain my position in a job. And of course, I've left jobs a lot. It all comes down to my own self-esteem and how I see myself, my rejection sensitive dysphoria, because I had that anyway. To actually have a narcissist use me in the workplace, it damaged me so much. As a result, I don't feel worthy in certain situations. As a result, I feel that it's my personality that gets focused on in these situations rather than the buildable skills that I have. If you like, I can do a little bit of a story time at some point where I can talk about my different experiences with people whom I believe to have narcissistic personality disorder. But I would love to hear your stories, so please pop a comment down below. Feel free to add me on Instagram and message me your story. Sometimes it takes actually being able to get things off our chest for others to be able to relate to us, for us to feel that little much better about our situations and about ourselves. But for now, I hope you guys have a good day, night, morning, evening, wherever you are in the world, and I'll see you guys all again for the next video. Bye!